the worst medication that destroys your brain and causes dementia over time. If you don't know, some medications, probably some you take every day, can greatly increase your risk of dementia and make your brain stop functioning properly. Dementia is a problem that has been growing. The number of cases has been increasing significantly and already affects tens, even hundreds of millions of people around the world. And the World Health Organization estimates that by 2050, the number of people with dementia will triple, and the elderly are more vulnerable to the neurological side effects of certain medications that I'm going to show you today. As I mentioned, many common medications you use every day are associated with memory loss, confusion, and even the development of dementia, the dementia syndrome. That's why it's very important for you to pay attention to what I'm going to tell you in this video. In case you don't know me, my name is João Migovski, Dr. João, I'm a doctor, and on this channel I show you how to take care of your health naturally. If you want to book an appointment with me, the link is in the video description and also in the pinned comments. Tell me in the chat, tell me in the comments which medication you take. And also tell me from which part of the world you're watching me. I'm in Rio de Janeiro, and fortunately, I don't need to take any medication. There's no history of it in my family. Maybe my grandfather on my father's side developed a dementia syndrome before he passed away, but that's the only case in my family that I know of where someone had something similar to dementia. And what about your family? What's your story with dementia? Whether it's Alzheimer's, frontotemporal dementia, or any other type of disease that presents with the clinical characteristics of dementia, memory loss, cognitive decline, difficulty communicating. These are the main clinical manifestations of dementia syndrome. To get straight to the point, there are 7 medications. Actually, there are 7 classes of medications, not just a single medication. You'll see that you probably take at least one of them. I know many people who take, for example, the first medication on our list, the first class of medications on our list, which are the so-called benzodiazepines, the controlled substances, clonazepam, diazepam, lorazepam. What's the brand name for clonazepam? Chronic prolonged use of benzodiazepines. In addition to increasing the risk of falls and causing strong dependence, it also raises the risk of dementia by up to 50%. That's right, as I mentioned, it can cause dependence, amnesia, slow reflexes, and drowsiness. So be very careful with these benzodiazepine medications. Do you use Rivotril? Do you use diazepam or lorazepam? It's very common for elderly people to use them. Clonazepam is one of the best-selling medications in Brazil, even though it's a controlled substance and requires a blue prescription to be sold. Even so, it's still a sales success here in Brazil. Why is that? Because doctors prescribe the medication and don't create a withdrawal plan. And then the person uses it for years. And when it's time to stop, to taper off, it becomes a big problem because it causes significant harm, right? There's withdrawal syndrome and the person feels the absence of the medication. So when we talk about benzodiazepines, it's very important that the treatment has a beginning, a middle, and an end, okay? It's not a medication that I think is safe or advisable to take for 20, 30, 40 years straight, which is what many people do, right? I have cases in my own family of people who have been using benzodiazepine medications for decades without any plan for tapering off or withdrawing from these drugs. Now, there are natural alternatives such as valerian extract, lemon balm, and passion flower, for example. Magnesium supplementation can be helpful, especially for those who have trouble sleeping. And obviously, lifestyle is always fundamental for managing stress. And benzodiazepines are medications that are prescribed in most cases for anxiety and insomnia, which are directly related to anxiety, right? Actually, to stress. That's why I'd like to invite you to read my book, The Longevity Code, 101 Habits to Live Past 101 Years, which has an entire chapter on stress management, okay? Natural strategies for you to better control your anxiety and not rely so much on medications like benzodiazepines, all right? The link to the book is in the video description and also in the pinned comments. In a moment, we'll talk more about the book, but I recommend you secure your copy now because the physical version is running out, okay? It costs 79 reals and 90 cents with free shipping throughout Brazil, and the digital version costs 39 reals and 90 cents. The second medication that can increase the risk of dementia are anticholinergics. such as diphenhydramine, oxybutynin, and ipratropium, which can even double the risk of dementia in the elderly because they block acetylcholine, a very important neurotransmitter causing confusion and lack of focus, okay? What are the natural alternatives? Well, if you take diphenhydramine for some allergy problem, lavender is an option. Chamomile also helps to calm you down in case you use any of these medications for that purpose. Propolis and honey are natural expectorants, which will also help you control the signs and symptoms of colds, flu, and so on. And if you use any of these medications for urinary incontinence, it's essential to do Kegel exercises to strengthen the pelvic floor muscles. The third class of medications that can lead to dementia, and these might be the most commonly used on the list that I prepared for you, are statins. Simvastatin, atorvastatin, rosuvastatin, medications used to control cholesterol. They can reduce coenzyme Q10 levels and as a result affect memory, causing brain fog, forgetfulness, lack of motivation. In other words, signs and symptoms very similar to dementia syndrome. What are the natural alternatives to control your cholesterol? First of all, a healthy lifestyle, which I teach in my book, The Longevity Code. If you have high cholesterol, it's very likely that your habits are not adequate. That's why what's written here is extremely valuable for those with high blood pressure, diabetes, or high cholesterol, because here you'll learn how to control these problems naturally without medication. In addition, omega-3 can also help. Black garlic, artichoke, regular aerobic exercise, it's essential that you stay physically active, and even supplementation with coenzyme Q10 can also help. Another food that helps fight cholesterol is Brazil nuts. Eat 1 or 2 a day, no more than that, and it will also help improve LDL control. The fourth class of medications are the so-called antidepressants. Tricyclics, such as amitriptyline and nortriptyline, can greatly impair memory and learning functions, leaving the mind dull and causing memory lapses and falls. That's why if you have anxiety or depression, it's essential to work on your lifestyle, okay? Depression, in my view, as a doctor and according to scientific studies, is not caused by a neurotransmitter imbalance. The drugs, the medications used in the treatment of depression they target neurotransmitters. So fluoxetine, for example, is a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. And then we have duloxetine, for example, which is an inhibitor of the reuptake of serotonin and noradrenaline. So these neurotransmitters are not necessarily involved in the origin of depression. And my view as a doctor, obviously my opinion based on science, on scientific studies, is that depression is much more a lifestyle disease than a neurotransmitter imbalance. It's much more a disease of how a person sees life, of how a person reacts to the challenges that life presents rather than a serotonin deficiency, okay? This further proves that people who do therapy, people who exercise, even though they're not taking supplements or acting directly on neurotransmitters, still experience improvement in their treatment, right? This is a treatment that brings improvement in cases of depression. So I think that depression medications are very weak and are very similar to placebo, okay? Actually, it's not just what I think, it's the truth. If we look at the studies and compare the results of placebo with the results of the medication, it's practically pathetic, let's say, to approve a medication with such a small difference in results compared to placebo. Natural alternatives for the treatment of depression, let's go. Therapy is important, right? Exercising, eating well, taking care of yourself, having a purpose in your life, these are fundamental for treating depression. And if you also do what's in this book, it's unlikely that you won't be able to improve in this struggle. The fifth group of medications are corticosteroids such as prednisone and dexamethasone, whose chronic use can cause atrophy of the hippocampus, the part of the brain most associated with memory. When the hippocampus atrophies, it can lead to insomnia, irritability, and cognitive deficits. So, what are natural alternatives to the use of corticosteroids? Just to be clear, I'm not telling you to stop taking any medication, okay? This is not a medical consultation. If you have a prescribed medication, you can only have it discontinued during a medical appointment, no matter how much it might seem like it, right? This is not, okay? Because I don't know your age, I don't know your weight, I don't know what medications you take, I don't know what complaints you have, I don't know how your test results are. I know absolutely nothing about you. So you can't just take my information and decide to stop or start a medication based on it, okay? I bring this information so you can discuss it with your doctor. And I also make myself available here for anyone who wants to schedule a consultation with me, okay? So it's not for self-medicating, and it's also not for stopping your medication on your own. Agreed? Powerful alternatives to the use of corticosteroids that are natural anti-inflammatories. Turmeric, always together with piperine, which we find in black pepper. Omega-3 also has anti-inflammatory properties. And as always, lifestyle is fundamental. So in any disease, in any case, for anyone, it's essential to have healthy habits. The sixth medication is hypnotics, such as zolpidem, which, yes, are associated with a higher risk of confusion, and especially falls in the elderly. Falls in the elderly are a serious problem. Why is that? When an elderly person falls, they break their femur, they need emergency surgery, and this is a surgery with a high rate of morbidity and mortality. All right? So, a large number of people who break their femur end up passing away in the following days or months. Why is that? It's a surgery. It's a problem that greatly debilitates the person. That's why it's essential to prevent falls. And zolpidem, besides increasing the risk of confusion because it's somewhat hallucinogenic, can also cause non-restorative sleep forgetfulness and irritability. So be very careful with this medication, all right? What can we do instead? Sleep hygiene, right? It's fundamental. Read my book, which has an entire chapter about sleep, chapter 4. You can supplement with melatonin or use calming teas like chamomile, lemon balm, or passion flower. Magnesium itself will also help you sleep, okay? Be careful with zolpidem. The seventh medication that can contribute to dementia is metformin. Why is that? It reduces the absorption of vitamin B12. And a deficiency in vitamin B12 is one of the main causes of reversible dementia. What are the others? Vitamin B12 deficiency, depression, and hypothyroidism, mainly. These are the three main causes of reversible dementia. Metformin, by reducing the absorption of vitamin B12, can contribute to mental weakness, tingling sensations, and cognitive deficits. So be careful, okay? Maybe if you take metformin, it might be a good idea to supplement with vitamin B12. Or if you have diabetes. Remember, type 2 diabetes is a lifestyle-related disease. So if you exercise and take care of your diet, you might not even need to take metformin. That's why I always say, folks, read my book. Here you'll find the complete guide to naturally taking care of your health problems. No doctors, no tests, no medications. It will only depend on your discipline and willpower. Besides that, in addition to having a healthy lifestyle, taking care of your diet, and exercising, berberine can also be an option for glucose control. Apple cider vinegar, Ceylon cinnamon, carqueja tea, following a diet low in carbohydrates and high in fiber and protein. All of this will greatly improve your diabetes control. So folks, many of the most commonly used medications in the world could be silently sabotaging your memory and your brain health. Another medication that can also increase the risk of dementia is proton pump inhibitors, or PPIs. The azoles out there, omeprazole, pantoprazole, lansoprazole, mainly because they impair the absorption of vitamin B12. There are natural and effective alternatives that can be considered together with your doctor or the healthcare professional who follows your case, okay? Do not self-medicate. Never stop taking any medication on your own, but ask questions, investigate, and talk to your doctor, and read my book, Longevity Code. The link is in the description and also in the pinned comments. Guys, like this video so we can help those people who don't have access to doctors, hospitals, or health insurance, and at least make sure they have access to quality information. Also subscribe to the channel. 85% of recurring viewers here are not subscribed, so maybe you're among that 85%. Share this video. Sharing health is an act of love. And please leave a rating from 0 to 10. What did you think of this content where we talked about 7 medications that increase your risk of dementia? Read the book, like the video, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and share this video. Sharing health is an act of love. And stay with me and watch this video here, where I talk about oils that help improve your circulation. and this video here, where I talk about fruits that help fight cancer. See you soon.